While I was helping my girlfriend with her silk stockings, we promised to get into Peking University together. But I failed the entrance exam on purpose, scoring a 0 on the literature test. I ended up with only 600 points, throwing away my chance at the university. But she didn't stay, she just left to study abroad. Honestly, she isn't the kind of person who feels bad about things. She knows that, in the end, I didn't even go. I never made it to college. I was forced to abandon my life. I gave up on my studies and became a delivery man. That night, I was dragging my exhausted body down the road. I was heading to my last delivery, an order for a church. Suddenly, a Range Rover came out of nowhere and slammed into me. It was a luxury car. Immediately after, a woman in red heels stepped out, knelt beside me, and looked at me. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I didn't mean to hit you." She spoke while opening her expensive designer bag. She pulled out a thick stack of cash. It was about 2 or 3. "Take this money and go to the hospital," she said. "Get yourself checked out. I have something very urgent that I need to handle right now." After she finished speaking, she shoved the money into my hand. She stood up, ready to leave. But then she stopped and turned back toward me. She crouched down again and pulled a pen from her bag. She scribbled a phone number onto a sticky note. Then she handed me her ID card, pressing it against the note. "If you need anything else, just call me. Anytime. My name is Senjutsu." By the time I looked down at the ID, she was already gone. The whole encounter barely lasted a minute. We hadn't even exchanged more than a few words. The engine roared like a god, and that Range Rover sped away into the night. I struggled to pick myself up off the ground. I finished my last delivery and pushed my broken electric bike home. I was still clutching that driver's ID in my hand. It was already midnight. After a brief moment of hesitation, I picked up my phone and dialed the number. I waited, hoping she wouldn't just decline the call. She didn't answer the first time. I waited a full minute. I dialed the number for a second time. This time, she hung up on me immediately. Feeling a bit stubborn, I decided to try a third time. This time, she finally picked up. On the other end, her impatient voice snapped. "Who is this? What do you want? Make it quick." I kept my voice as polite as possible. "A moment ago, you hit me with your car. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Her attitude flipped 180 degrees as she apologized over and over. "Which hospital are you at? Have they checked you out? What did the doctor say?" Her worried tone made me feel a lot better, so I answered calmly. "I'm fine, but my electric bike took a real beating. The important thing is that I'm okay." "I'll pay whatever the bike costs," she said, but I looked at the cash in my hand. "The money you already gave me is enough to fix it. I still have your ID. When is a good time to return it?" "Can you do it right now?" she asked, her voice sounding much lighter. I told her I couldn't leave, so I asked if she could come pick it up. She agreed, and I gave her my address. After hanging up the phone, I sat down on the wooden bench by the lamp. I started applying some Yunnan Baiyao medicine to my bruises. About half an hour later, I heard a knock at the door. I got up, left my room, and walked over to the living area. I opened the door to find 4 men standing outside. The leader looked about my age, maybe 20, while the 3 behind him were massive. The guy in front glared at me and snapped. "You the one who called?" I didn't even have time to answer. Before I could get a word out, the man lunged forward. He slammed a fist into my face and followed it with a kick to my gut. I couldn't process what was happening. They just kept hitting me until I collapsed onto the floor. I tried to push myself back up, but the man's boot came flying toward my head. Suddenly, I tasted the metallic tang of blood in my mouth. My vision blurred as the world started to spin. I looked up and saw my roommate standing there, watching. My neighbor, who I usually drink with, opened his door, took one look, and slammed it shut. The man stepped closer and ground his leather shoe into my arm. "Where is the ID?" he demanded. I wanted to speak, but half my face was numb and the words wouldn't come out. He turned to the 3 thugs behind him and barked, "Get in there and find that ID." I lay there as they stormed into my space. "It's on the desk in the bedroom," one of them shouted. They found it almost immediately. One of them pulled it out and handed it over to their leader, Lam. Lam inspected the ID carefully before tucking it away. He looked satisfied as he slipped it into his pocket. Then he looked down at me and pressed his weight into my arm again. I felt my bones groaning under the pressure of his boot. "You blind piece of trash," he spat coldly. "Faking an accident just to cross paths with us? Let me make one thing very clear. If you ever dare to bother him again, or go near that woman, I will definitely kill you." After dropping that threat, he delivered one last brutal kick to my ribs. He turned to leave, but then stopped at the door as if he'd forgotten something and went back into my room. He pulled out my phone and smashed it. He slammed it against the floor right in front of my eyes, making sure the device was completely useless. Only then did they finally leave with their heads held high. Once they were gone, I sat alone on the bed, watching the white smoke drift from my cheap cigarette. I don't get it. Why is this world so full of injustice? And why does everyone wear a mask? Why would she leave her ID behind just to set me up to be beaten? Why? I made a silent vow to find her and ask what she's really playing at. Outside the window, the rain began to pour even harder. It felt like it wouldn't stop for the rest of the night. When the sun rises tomorrow, I'll just be another broken soul, lost in the city. The first ray of morning light spilled into the room, and I already had my things packed in a suitcase. I'm moving out of this rental today because of the chaos from last night. The landlord thinks I'm hanging around with criminals and refused to let me stay. I loaded my suitcase onto my old electric bike, left with nothing but 2,600 yuan. That's the money that woman gave me yesterday. under the pouring rain. Last month, as soon as I got my paycheck, I sent every cent I had back home to pay for my father's medical treatments. I only kept a tiny bit for my daily expenses. Out of those 2,600 yuan, I spent 800 to buy a cheap smartphone, so I could keep working my delivery job. I have to keep grinding. I have no other choice. The remaining 1,000 yuan had to be enough to rent a new room somewhere. If I can't find a decent place before the sun goes down, I'll be sleeping under a bridge tonight. I popped my SIM card into the new phone, and the second it turned on, my Uncle Jie called. My second uncle, Chen Xiaojie, is a piece of work. My grandfather literally picked him up off the street. He's only 6 years older than me, but he spent those years building a reputation for being pure trouble. I sat on the curb and answered, "I'm fine, uncle. Why are you calling me now?" "I've got something to tell you," he said. "I went to Kunming to help your father get his medicine. I heard there's an old doctor there with a special way to treat kidney disease. I'm staying the night here, then I'm taking the train back tomorrow morning." Hearing him talk about my father's condition made my heart sink. Whenever my second uncle sounds this serious, I start getting nervous. If my second uncle knew I was doing this badly, he'd lose his mind. If he finds out I'm homeless, he'll cause a scene and tell my parents everything. They'd just worry themselves sick, and with this black eye, he'd hunt down whoever did it. That would be a disaster, so I told him to just come home early once he has the medicine. I lied and told him I was buried in work. But Uncle Jie insisted. "Your mother even sent a basket of farm eggs for you. I'll call you when I arrive," he said, and then he just hung up. I stared at my phone in a daze for 2 hours, trying to find any place to rent. With only 2 hours until he arrives, I'm in serious trouble. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to find a small, cheap hotel near the city center, right by the train station. I'll stash my uncle there for the night. That way, he won't even think about coming back to my place. As long as he's settled, it doesn't matter where I sleep tonight. 2 hours later, I was waiting for my second uncle at the station exit. He stepped off the train wearing a knockoff Nike shirt, his muscles bulging, and a new tattoo on his arm. The second he saw my face, he froze in his tracks. He looked at me with pure concern and asked, "Momo, what happened? What happened to you? Did you get into a fight?" I lied and told him I just took a bad fall. But my second uncle didn't buy it for a second. He's a veteran of 1,000 street battles, and I knew I couldn't fool him. I tried to change the subject quickly and told him we should get moving. I told him I'd drop him off at his place first, then we'd go find his medicine. My uncle didn't say a word as we walked toward the hotel. He kept glancing at me from the corner of his eye. We stopped at a small fish restaurant I had booked nearby. I sat him down and tried to set the ground rules. I told him he'd stay here tonight and that he couldn't tell my parents about the eye. My uncle just stared at me, his expression hardening. He wouldn't let it go, demanding to know exactly who laid a hand on me. He asked if I was hiding something from the family and why I was being targeted. I felt a wave of pure frustration wash over me. I sat on the edge of the bed and lit a cigarette. I cursed under my breath, admitting I didn't even know why they beat me. I ended up telling him everything that happened last night. I explained how hard it's been trying to survive in this city lately. I begged him again, "Uncle, please don't tell my parents. I don't want them to worry." I handed him some cash and said, "Here's a few hundred yuan. Give this to my father when you get back." Shin Xiaoga smoked in silence with his head down before finally agreeing not to tell my parents. Then my second uncle pulled out 2,000 yuan and told me to keep my money and find a better apartment. I tried to push it back, telling him, "Uncle, I can't take your money." He snapped back in a commanding tone, "If I give it to you, you take it. Stop talking nonsense." He told me to find a place while he got the medicine, so we could have one last dinner before his train. I took a deep breath, feeling a heavy weight lift from my chest. I knew Chen Xiaoga truly cared about me, and I didn't want to cause him any more worry. I accepted his offer and spent the afternoon hunting for a flat while he went for the herbs. My father had been battling a chronic illness for years, and the struggle had drained our family's spirit. To treat his condition, we had already burned through every cent of the family savings. When my grandfather passed away, he left behind a small inheritance. It was probably worth tens of thousands of yuan. By all rights, that money should have been split between my father and my second uncle. But my uncle refused to take a single penny, giving it all to fund my father's medical treatments. Even though my second uncle, Chen Xiaoga, never had a formal education and spent most of his time idling around, his character was absolutely flawless. Later that afternoon, I finally found a promising lead on a property in a local listing. I found a listing for a 3-bedroom shared apartment in a decent residential complex. The smallest room available was 700 yuan a month with a shared kitchen and bathroom. The agent told me a couple occupied the master bedroom. A single girl was living in the second bedroom. After checking the place out, I decided it was exactly what I needed. Walking through the rooms, everything felt strangely familiar and right. The conditions were good enough for me. I didn't hesitate and paid 3 months rent up front. By the time I finished all the paperwork and moved my few belongings, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. Chen Xiaoga sent me a message saying he was done with the errands. I went to meet him, but my mind was still drifting. A girl nearby caught me staring blankly at her and hissed, "Pervert," under her breath. She fanned her neck in disgust and hurried away into her house. I ignored her and focused on meeting up with my uncle. Chen Xiaoga and I grabbed dinner at a small spot near the station. We split a few beers while waiting for his train to arrive. I watched the condensation drip down my glass, feeling the weight of the day. I was too exhausted to even think about heading back to the Paris Spring Complex. In that moment, I told myself I'd make it to the real Paris one day. I went looking for him and spotted him standing right there. I started walking toward him. I saw him clearly in the crowd. He was right where he said he'd be. I finally reached him. There he was, waiting for me. I closed the distance and waved. That night, Chen Xiaoga and I grabbed dinner and a few beers by the station. I felt too lazy to trek back to my Paris Spring exile, so I booked a cheap hotel room nearby. Early the next morning, I saw Chen Xiaoga off at the platform. As soon as he left, I got straight to work. No job means no income, and I was running low. The only thing I could do to make quick cash was sign up to deliver food. Inevitably, the grind took over. I stayed busy making deliveries until 11:30 at night, but the very last order of the night caught me off guard. It was a delivery for someone in my own apartment complex. The customer was my new roommate, Lin Jifei, so I just carried the food home. The couple in the master bedroom wasn't home, their door locked and lights out. Every now and then, I could hear the faint clicking of keys. I shrugged off my jacket and tossed it into my room. Then I carried the food over to her door. I stood outside her room and gave a soft knock. Lin Jifei opened the door in her pajamas, her face twisting into a look of pure disgust the moment she saw me. I held up the bag and said, "I've got your order right here." She snapped at me, asking, "Who gave you permission to touch my food?" Before I could even get a word out, she snatched the bag from my hand. Her next move was as cold as her expression. She didn't even look at the food. She just tossed the entire delivery into the trash can by the door. The order had a bowl of soup inside, and when she yanked it away, the liquid spilled everywhere. It soaked into my jeans, burning my skin, but she didn't even blink. She just stepped back and slammed the door in my face. I stood there for a second, lost for words, before shaking my head and walking away. I went back to my room and checked my phone for the delivery status. A notification popped up immediately. A 1-star review with a nasty comment attached. It read, "Why did you give my food to someone else? Are you always this irresponsible?" I stared at the screen, feeling the sheer absurdity of it all. One bad review docks my pay by 300 yuan, an entire day's hard work gone. I sat on my bed smoking a cigarette, mourning the sheer ugliness of life. Then, on Wednesday at noon, I got a sudden call from Chen Xiaojia, probably about the situation back home. I pulled my electric bike over and said, "What's up, uncle? I'm mid-delivery, call me later." He told me, "I'm at the corner of Youth and People's Avenue. Stop taking orders and get here." I thought I misheard him and asked, "Wait, where are you exactly?" He said, "The small garden where you got hit." "Tell me, where did that Range Rover strike you?" I felt a pit in my stomach. "What are you doing? I thought you went home. Why are you back?" He replied, "I'm getting back what they took from you. Just get here. Checking these cameras is a pain." I was speechless. I knew exactly what kind of man my uncle was. "Wait for me, I'm coming." Half an hour later, I made my way over to find him. Right there at the Peace Garden intersection, near that same small garden, I saw the guy crouching down. He was positioned right on the curb, staring intensely at the street. He was studying the security cameras at the intersection, lost in thought. The moment Chen Xiaojia spotted me, he handed me a cigarette and started asking questions. "Where exactly did they hit you?" I corrected Uncle Chun, telling him, "I didn't get hit. The Range Rover turned, and I hit it." He cursed under his breath. "Everyone knows when you turn, you yield to traffic going straight. Now, which way?" I pointed across the street and told him, "Right over there." "Uncle, let's just drop it. We don't know anyone in Kunming. It's better to avoid trouble." Chen Xiaojia threw his half-finished cigarette to the ground and crushed it under his boot. "I've got it. Once I track that plate, I'll find the bastard who laid a hand on you. Now go back to work." With that, Chen Xiaojia lowered his head and walked away. I stood there and shouted after him, "Uncle, I'm staying at Paris Spring. Are you coming over tonight?" He didn't even look back, just tossed 2 words over his shoulder. "No, don't worry about me." I watched his figure disappear into the crowd, my heart sinking with unease. He hasn't seen how vicious those people are. They clearly aren't the good type. They drive Range Rovers and carry Gucci bags worth more than $10,000. Chen Xiaojia doesn't know a soul in Kunming. Going in blind like this is just asking for trouble. But I also knew I couldn't talk him out of it. Aside from worrying, I didn't know what else to do. 3 nights later, Chen Xiaojia called me again, telling me to meet him. He wanted me at the Shirching restaurant parking lot in half an hour. When I arrived at the parking lot and found Uncle Chun, he was crouching in a dark corner near a riverbed. He stayed hidden right next to a flower bed. And right in front of him sat the white Range Rover I'd hit that night. The scrape marks on the side were still there. I was stunned by Chen Xiaojia's skills. How did he even find it? I was worried, so I tried to talk him out of it. "Uncle, let it go. Don't cause trouble." Chen Xiaojia spoke without a hint of emotion. "No, today, we settle the score." I looked around, even though it was already past 8 p.m. The place was lively and bustling, hardly the spot for a confrontation. "Have a smoke." Chen Xiaojia handed me a pack of cigarettes. They were soft-pack Zongwas. Then he pointed to a black Santana and said, "Get in and wait for them. Don't worry, just follow me and sit down." The moment I climbed into the car, my nerves started to fray. This Santana was at least 10 years old and in terrible condition. I saw a steel pipe next to the driver's seat, one end wrapped in bandages. I couldn't calm down. I hated being bullied, but this felt wrong. I was shaking, terrified that someone was about to get seriously hurt. I tried to convince Chen Xiaojia not to cause unnecessary trouble, but he just ignored me. Around 9:15, the main target appeared, the man who beat me that night, Senjucho. The woman who was driving the car and had intimate contact with me appeared too. The two of them walked side by side toward the Range Rover. Senjucho was still carrying a Gucci bag, though it wasn't the same one from that night. The man walked to the driver's side and pulled the door open. Chen Xiaojie asked me coldly, "Is it those two?" I hesitated and whispered, "Uncle, just let it go." He seemed impatient and snapped, "Stop talking nonsense. Tell me." I kept my eyes fixed on the Range Rover and nodded. The Range Rover started up and slowly pulled out of the parking space. Chen Xiaojie didn't hesitate for a second. He cranked the engine of the beat-up Santana. We began tailing the Range Rover in that broken-down car. My nerves were completely shot the entire time. I knew exactly what Chen Xiaojie was capable of, and it terrified me. The Range Rover led the way, and we stayed right on its tail. After several turns, we left the second ring road and hit a remote side street. Chen Xiaojie waited for the perfect moment to strike. He accelerated past the Range Rover and suddenly jerked the steering wheel. The tires screeched against the pavement. He cut off the Range Rover and slammed on the brakes. He was blocking the path completely. The body of our car was pinned right in front of that white Range Rover. I have to admit, the brakes on that luxury SUV were incredible. Otherwise, we would have been crushed the second we stopped. Chen Xiaojie wasn't in any rush to get out of the car. He leaned over and calmly lit a cigarette. Outside, the driver, the same man who had beaten me that night, had already jumped out of the Range Rover. He stormed toward our door in a blind rage. He reached the driver's side and kicked the door with all his might, screaming, "How the hell are you driving? Do you even have a license?" Chen Xiaojie slowly placed the lit cigarette in the corner of his mouth. He gripped the steel pipe he'd prepared earlier with his right hand. Then, he reached for the door handle with his left. He shoved the door open so hard it sent the man outside stumbling back several steps. Chen Xiaojie stepped out with the steel pipe, wasting no time on words. He swung the pipe directly at the man's head, forcing him to block with his arm. I had already landed a kick on him. The man stumbled back 2 steps and collapsed onto the side of the road. He was completely paralyzed by Chen Xiaojie's aura. He stared up at Chun from the ground, his face pale and his voice gone. Every ounce of that earlier arrogance had vanished. Suddenly, Shun Junchu scrambled out of the passenger seat. She rushed over to the man's side as fast as she could. She knelt down, her face full of genuine concern for him. Chen Xiaojie pulled the cigarette from his mouth with his left hand. He held it between his fingers and gave a cold nod. I walked toward Chen Xiaojie, trembling, and whispered, "Uncle, stop, you already hit him. Let's just go." "Is it you?" Shin Junchu asked, not recognizing me at first. Thinking back, it wasn't surprising that she didn't know who I was. That night it was raining, pitch black, and late. She had been in a desperate hurry to get to her father's house. More importantly, I was wearing a delivery uniform and a helmet on an electric scooter. It was only natural she didn't remember me, but right now, she was scanning both me and Chen Xiaojie with intense caution. She asked with a voice full of dread, "What do you want from us?" Chen Xiaojie didn't pay any attention to Shin Junchu. He took one last drag of the cigarette in his left hand and flicked the butt to the ground. He gripped the steel pipe in his right hand and slowly crouched down. He pressed the end of that steel pipe hard against the man's head. Even in the dark, I could see him putting his weight into it until the man's face began to contort. The guy was surprisingly quiet, gritting his teeth and refusing to scream. Chen Xiaojie stared at that twisted face and felt a surge of annoyance. He looked at the man and said, "You hit Momo and you smashed her phone. I'm going to give you a little discount on the trouble you caused. Transfer 5,000 yuan right now. Send the money, and this whole thing is over." Chen Xiaojie let out a mocking laugh that sounded like a threat. "If you don't transfer it, don't even think about leaving here today." The man was absolutely terrified. Shin Junchu opened her crossbody bag and spoke with a trembling voice. "Please don't hurt him, I'll give you this." She didn't hesitate for a second. She pulled a stack of cash out of her bag. She shoved the money toward Chen Xiaojie's hands. She didn't even bother to count it. I had no idea how much was there. "I'm telling you right now, you can't do anything to them." Chen Xiaojie glanced at the pile of cash and spoke up. "That's enough," he said, considering the matter settled for now. "It's over. Don't think you can use your money to bully people. Remember that. If you have a problem with it, come find me." He rattled off a phone number that was easy to remember. "Call me whenever you want." After saying that, Chen Xiaojie tucked the steel pipe away and turned to me. He gestured with his hand, telling me to leave quietly. "If he dares to bully you again, just call." That's how Chen Xiaojie handled things. As he turned to walk away, I couldn't help but steal a few more glances at Shin Junchu. He was incredibly handsome, with features so delicate I couldn't find the words. As I stared at him, he caught my gaze and looked right back at me. Meeting his eyes made me feel a surge of embarrassment, and I quickly looked away. I turned around and headed back up toward the street. I got into the car, and Chen Xiaojie noticed my hesitation. He looked a bit concerned and asked me with a hint of disappointment, "Are you afraid of them? We all have 2 shoulders and 1 head. Why are you scared? Swear to yourself that you'll fight back." To be honest, I was feeling a bit conflicted about everything. I've lived in Kunming all these years playing the role of the quiet outsider. I don't want to argue or get into fights with people. I just want to avoid trouble, work hard, and send money back to my family. My only goal was saving enough for my father to finally see a specialist. I stayed silent, so Chen Xiaojie tried to reassure me. Forget about it, he said. If he messes with you again, I'll break him. I'll keep hounding him until he gives up. Now, get out at the next light. He shoved the cash toward me and told me to spend it carefully. I'll be in Kunming for a while. If you need anything, just call. He didn't even wait for me to agree before tossing the pile of bills into my lap. I knew my father desperately needed that medical money, so I didn't argue. It looked like more than 6,000 yuan. I tucked it away and asked him, aren't you going home? What are you even doing here in Kunming? Don't worry about it, he replied. I'm definitely not delivering food. Just remember, if he touches you, hit back. Don't be a coward. There was a massive gap between my philosophy of life and Qin Shaojia's. After he dropped me off, I wandered the midnight streets alone. With thousands in my pocket, I felt uneasy. This money came way too easy. I thought about explaining that the whole thing was just a misunderstanding. I admit it, I only had these desperate ideas because I'm just a poor country boy. I simply can't handle this much chaos in my life. Deep down, I was also fantasizing about actually meeting Senjutsu. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss her next video, and I didn't want her to have a bad impression of me. Suddenly, I realized how pathetic that idea really was. How could I crave the attention of a goddess like her? I couldn't help but let out a sarcastic laugh at my own expense. I stopped at the entrance of the spring complex. I bought 2 skewers of roasted chicken wings and sat on the curb to eat. A stray dog approached me cautiously. It was eyeing the bones in my hand, desperate for a bite. I tossed a piece down, but the dog was too scared to move. When I looked at it, the poor thing flinched and scrambled back. I broke off a piece of meat and tossed it toward the stray. It sniffed the air and began to eat voraciously. I threw it another bone. Its courage grew with every bite I offered. Slowly, it started inching closer to me. In the end, it didn't distrust me anymore. It sat there, calmly chewing on the bones, right there on the ground beside me. Suddenly, a familiar feeling washed over me. In this strange city, that dog and I were both just drifters, living carefully for a bite to eat. When I finally headed back home, I saw someone was using the bathroom. So I went out to the balcony, leaned against the rail, and lit a cigarette. When I stepped back inside, I ran right into Lenny Fei. She was coming out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around her. The moment our eyes met, she glared at me with pure hatred again. I honestly don't understand her problem. Why is she always attacking me? Just because I saw her chest once? It wasn't on purpose. Is it really necessary to hold such a grudge? The next day, I gave myself a rare luxury. I slept until I woke up naturally, then opened the app to start accepting orders. The very first one was a massive order. 40 lunchboxes to be delivered to the Kate International Hotel. When I saw the request, I didn't think twice about it. I figured it was just some marketing firm putting on an event. I assumed some company was holding a training session in this 5-star hotel. When I reached the hotel entrance, the security guard blocked my path. He told me food deliveries weren't allowed inside. He insisted the customers had to come down and pick it up themselves. I had no choice but to call the person who placed the order, a young woman. She told me to hand my phone over to the security guard. I don't know what she said to him, but he handed the phone back immediately. He told me to take the service elevator straight up to the conference room on the 29th floor. For the first trip, I could only carry 20 lunchboxes. I left the rest on my electric bike and asked the guard to keep an eye on them. When I reached the conference room, only the girl who ordered was there. She told me to leave the bento boxes on the table. I headed back down to grab the rest of the order, but when I returned to the conference room with the second load, the scene unfolding before my eyes left me completely stunned. The room was no longer empty, and right there, standing in the middle of the crowd, was Shun Juechu. The moment our eyes met, I froze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but there was no mistake. Shun Juechu was right there in that room. She was staring right at me while a man opened a bento box and handed it to her. The man whispered, "President Shun, the election is behind us now. You worked hard during the meeting. Please, eat first." Shun Juechu took the bento from him and spoke. She said politely, "Thank you." My skin crawled. Yesterday Qin Shaojia and I thrashed her boyfriend, and now I'm here in her territory delivering food. Talk about looking for trouble. I set the bento boxes down in a hurry. I turned to the girl who placed the order and said, "Everything is delivered. Enjoy your meal." After saying that, I didn't wait around. I bolted out of there and made it to the elevator in a single breath. I just wanted to get out as fast as possible. The elevator at the Tidy International Hotel was fast, moving directly from the 29th floor. It didn't make a single stop on the way down. I watched the numbers tick down one by one. Finally, it came to a halt on the first floor. The moment the elevator doors slid open, I froze. There were at least a dozen people waiting outside. Security guards. I tried to act natural, kept my head down, and walked out. 2 guards immediately stepped forward and blocked my path. They looked at me and said, "Come with us." I played dumb and told the guard, "You've got the wrong guy." "Cut the crap," he snapped back. He barked out a direct order. He signaled to 3 other guards. "Take him away now." "Why?" I shouted at the top of my lungs. "You're just security guards. What right do you have to take away my freedom?" My shout echoed, and the crowd in the lobby went silent. Everyone in the hotel lobby turned to stare at us. The guard turned to address the onlookers. "Sorry for the disturbance, but a guest just reported stolen valuables. We suspect this delivery driver took them, and we're taking him to the police." I heard someone whisper, "A delivery guy is a thief?" The quality of these delivery people is hitting a new low. The murmurs started spreading through the lobby like wildfire. First they mess with the food, now they're stealing? That's too much. Who's going to trust these delivery platforms after this? A good service is being ruined by people like him. I screamed my lungs out, trying to get anyone to listen. My throat was tight and my expression fierce as I screamed, "I'm innocent." But nobody believed me. Nobody paid any attention to my cries. I was surrounded by nothing but cold, indifferent faces. They just stood there, recording everything on their phones. The 4 guards from the Mexico City police force had become a massive wall. Security didn't actually seem interested in taking me to the station. Just like the manager said, they confined me to a room and took my things. They tied me to a chair, and once I was restrained, the fat guard turned to the others. "You two, go handle the execution. Xiao Zhan and I will watch him here." The other 2 guards looked annoyed and snapped back. "Why don't you go? I'll stay." "Cut the crap," the fat guard barked. "I told you to go, so go. Stop playing around. Move it, and don't worry about it." He hurried them along, making sure they didn't end up in trouble. They had no choice but to leave the room, casting angry glares as they went. The fat guard took off his hat, tossed it aside, and flopped onto a bed. He looked over at the other guard standing next to him. "Give me a cigarette." "Damn, this is comfortable. Let me go," I shouted. "This is illegal detention. You're breaking the law." The fat guard threatened me. "I don't know anything about illegal detention," he sneered. "I just do what the boss tells me to do. If you dare to scream and annoy me one more time." He pointed a finger down at his own foot. "I'll shove this unwashed sock right into your mouth." I haven't changed it in a week. That threat was actually effective. It was so disgusting I couldn't even look at him. I stayed quiet because I knew he was exactly the type to do it. The 2 guards lay there smoking while I waited in agony. I had no idea what was coming next or what kind of person I was about to face, so all I could do was wait in silence. Not long after, both guards fell fast asleep on the bed. I tried to escape, but I couldn't make it happen. My hands and feet were tied way too tight to the chair. Every single effort I made was a waste of energy. Maybe 3 hours passed, maybe 4. Suddenly, the door that had been locked tight swung open. The moment I heard the hinges creak, I looked up. The 2 guards scrambled off the bed as Sun Yucho entered the room. The girl following him was the same one who had ordered the food earlier. Standing right beside her was the manager of Dayton. The 2 sleeping guards snapped to attention and bowed respectfully, greeting him as President's son. Sun Yucho frowned at them and asked, "Why did you tie him up?" "Wasn't it you who ordered it?" one of them stammered. The Dayton manager immediately glared at the fat guard. He shouted, "Who told you to do that? Who told you to tie people up? Untie him right now." Once I was free, Sun Yucho turned to the others and said, "Everyone out. Nobody enters without my direct order." The lobby manager tried to speak up, but Sun Yucho cut him off. Seeing how firm his tone was, none of them dared to say another word. One by one, they left the room with their heads bowed. Sun Yucho looked at me coldly and asked what kind of man I was. "What is your problem with Joao? Why did you act so tough yesterday?" So that was his name, Joao. Finally, I knew who I was dealing with. Is it really necessary to play dumb? Sun Yucho looked right through me with a piercing gaze. He asked, "Does it even make sense for you two to fight all day? Is there nothing that can't be solved by just sitting down to talk? You hit him today, he hits you tomorrow. Is that how you think problems get solved?" I know Joao's temperament is a bit arrogant. The people around him are all the same way. But what I don't understand is why something so small could cause such a fight. It seemed he saw me as nothing but a thug. I looked at Sun Yucho and asked, "Will you at least listen to my side?" "I don't have the time," he snapped, cutting me off instantly. He didn't show me an ounce of respect. "I brought you here to tell you to stop bothering Joao in the middle of the night. If you need money, just tell me directly. Don't embarrass him." In that moment, my blood started to boil. I stared Sun Yucho down and asked him a question. "You had me tied up here for 4 hours, ruining my entire afternoon of work, just to tell me this nonsense?" Sun Yucho shrugged and asked, "If not that, then what? What else would I have to say to you?" Damn it, my rage ignited instantly. "Fine, since you have something to say to me, I have something for you too. I'm the one who delivered that lunchbox you ate earlier, and I'll let you in on a secret. I ate a few bites of that food first. You were eating my leftovers. I even spit in it." Sun Yucho's eyes nearly popped out of his head. A second later, he covered his mouth and bolted toward the bathroom. What a relief. I ignored Kojima and Tetsuya and marched straight out the door. The lobby manager and the security guards were all staring at me with strange expressions. I didn't care. I left with my head held high, feeling lighter with every step. I walked out of the hotel lobby and back into the real world. It was dinner rush, so I planned to jump back on the app and start taking orders. But when I opened it, I saw that my account had been suspended. I called customer service immediately to find out what was going on. They told me I was flagged for a theft case and my delivery privileges were revoked. In other words, I was fired. Who the hell did I offend this time? Do they think delivering food is easy? I turned back and glared at the sign for the Tsaidi International Hotel. I spat on the ground just as a group of people swarmed the entrance. A squad of security guards came charging out, screaming at me to stop. I tried to escape, but they were already closing in on me. I took off running as fast as I could, but the guard at the gate caught me with a heavy blow. They pinned me to the ground and swarmed all over me. I was captured. This time they didn't take me back inside the hotel. Instead, they shoved me into the back of a black Buick van. Sun Yucho climbed in and sat in the second row. He took the left seat while I lay on the right, hands and feet bound. They were terrified I'd try to move, so they wrapped the rope around my body twice. The security guards piled into the third row behind us. As we pulled away, a wave of nerves finally hit me. I turned my head towards Sun Yucho and decided to speak up. What are you planning? I only ate a bit of your food. You don't have to kill me, right? Shut up, Sun Yucho snapped, glaring at me. If you dare mention that food again, I'll have them throw you out of this moving car. Fine, I'll be quiet, but at least tell me where you're taking me. You've already ruined my life enough today. I even lost my job because of you, I said, but Sun Yucho just looked away coldly. I couldn't care less about your pathetic job. Job or no job, if Joao gets hurt, I'm dragging you to court. Wait, I had to ask, who is Joao? What's wrong with him, and what does he have to do with me? Joao is my younger brother, and I won't let him get hurt. His brother? Hearing Sun Yucho say that, I felt a sudden jolt of adrenaline. What was going on? It's not my fault if your brother is hurt. Your friend kidnapped my brother, so I'm using you as the trade. Hold on a second. I stared at Sun Yucho, trying to process it. You're saying my friend kidnapped him, and you're using me as bait. I didn't even know I had a friend that capable. It's the guy from last night. The one from last night, Chen Xiaojun. Good grief, what the hell did Chen Xiaojun do now? I felt like my head was going to explode. We agreed yesterday to leave this behind, so why go after Joao? The rest of the drive was dead silent. We left the city for the suburbs and finally reached a ruined warehouse. The Buick pulled up and came to a stop. It was parked right there, on the outskirts of the city. The same Santana that Chen Xiaojun drove last night. There was a makeshift table set up next to the two cars. Actually, it was just two old tires stacked up. They had a wooden plank thrown on top to serve as a tabletop. A few cans and some cheap plates were scattered across it. Leftover braised meat and a dozen empty beer bottles lay around as Chen Xiaojun stood up. He was leaning against the side of that square table. Joao and the others were huddled together like they were in a safe house. All of them looked to be around the same age. They looked terrible. Every single one of them had a face full of bruises and swelling. Seeing the state they were in, Sun Yucho couldn't take it anymore and bolted toward them. Her face was twisted with pure worry. Joao, how did you get beaten like this? Who did this to you? As she asked that, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. Then, her eyes locked onto Chen Xiaojun. But Chen Xiaojun didn't even give her a second glance. The fat security guard kicked me out of the car, and two others hauled me off the ground. Let our young master go right now, or I'll kill you, they screamed. Chen Xiaojun looked visibly surprised when he saw me. He frowned, but didn't say a word as Chen Xiaojun set down his glass and stood up. What exactly is going on here? Sun Yucho looked at Chen Xiaojun and demanded to know when this happened. Was it you? Did you beat them like this? How could I see my brother in this state? Didn't we agree last night that everything was fine? What exactly are you trying to do, brother? Don't say another word. Joao stood up with his head hanging low and said, It's not their fault, it's mine. The five of us couldn't take him down. I got what I deserved. If I hadn't heard it with my own ears, I wouldn't have believed it was true. The four men Joao brought were massive, but it didn't look like they stood a chance. Chen Xiaojun had single-handedly dismantled all of them, and he had beaten them so badly they were actually humbled. Sun Yucho reached out her hand, trembling with pain. She gently touched Joao's swollen face and whispered, Does it hurt? Joao nodded at first, then quickly shook his head. He told her he was fine and that this wasn't the first time he'd looked like this. I've been hit before, but he's the first person to actually beat me. It's not their fault. Fine. Chen Xiaojun suddenly cut her off before she could say another word. Chen Xiaojun looked at Joao and said, Your sister is quite something. She even went as far as arresting my niece. As of today, we're even. Once they release my nephew, I'm done with this. I'll let you go. Consider the fee for this entire appearance waived. But don't let there be a next time. The fat security guard started bragging in front of Joao, calling him sir. They're being way too arrogant. Let me teach them a lesson. Sun Yucho turned her gaze toward the fat security guard. She looked back at Joao and spoke with a heavy sigh. What exactly is your problem? Can we just settle everything today and stop this constant trouble? You're an adult now. When are you finally going to grow up? When that thug left, he told me to take care of you. Can't you pull yourself together? I have to look after you and run the entire company. Do you think this is easy for me? As she spoke, tears of pure frustration began to stream down her face. Joao froze when he saw his sister start to cry. Panic set in, and he immediately started pleading, realizing he'd messed up. Please stop crying, okay? It's my fault. I got beaten last night, but it's on me. I wasn't satisfied, so I called some friends today to teach him a lesson. But I didn't expect us to be so outmatched. 5 of us couldn't even take him down. I won't cause any more trouble, I promise. Just stop crying, okay? I shouted from the sidelines as they were having their moment. Can you guys untie me first? I'm still bound up over here. My uncle didn't even tie your brother up, so show some respect and let me go. Sun Yucho shot a sharp look at the fat security guard. The fat guard scrambled over and quickly untied my ropes. She was still worried about her brother and asked him why he'd even shown up last night. Stop pretending, I yelled. You hit me with your car, then sent him to my house to beat me and smash my phone. Sun Yucho froze, completely stunned by my words, and stared at me for 3 full seconds. Then she slowly turned her gaze back toward Joao. Joao lowered his head, looking like a scolded child. Sister, let me explain. He was too terrified to look her in the eye and spoke in a low, trembling voice. That night, you told me you hit someone with the car, right? You asked me to go get your ID back for you. I thought he was extorting you, that he took your ID just to squeeze you for money. So I took some friends to his house to get it back. I was worried he'd use your number to harass you, so I smashed his phone before I left. Joao's voice trailed off into a whisper as he finished explaining what happened last night. Sun Yucho stood there beside him, looking completely shell-shocked as she glanced between me and her brother. Joao looked like he wanted to bury his head in the dirt. He clutched at his clothes, trembling with fear. Is it clear now? I said, locking eyes with Sun Yucho. I told her I didn't have the patience to explain myself anymore. You heard it straight from your brother's mouth. Do you get it now? First, you hit me with your car. Then, you sent thugs to my home. And today, I was framed as a thief by that damn manager. The manager at the delivery station had it out for me. The platform has already blocked my account from taking any more orders. I've wasted my time and lost my livelihood. Is this your masterpiece? Did I ever do anything to provoke you? Why did you have to ruin my life like this? Sun Yocho's face turned a deep shade of crimson. Her voice softened, losing all its previous edge. I'm so sorry, she stammered. I'll make it up to you. I'll compensate you for everything. No thanks. Keep it. Don't think for a second that your money gives you the right to do whatever you want. I walked over to Chin Sheoj with a cool confidence, grabbed a beer bottle, and chugged the whole thing down to the last drop. I tossed the empty bottle aside. I told Chin Sheoj I couldn't believe how well he could fight. Chin Sheoj just shrugged with a look of disdain and said it was nothing. Then he stood up and turned to Sun Yucho, saying, Miss, I think you're a reasonable person, and it's much easier to communicate with people who listen to reason. You hit him with a car, you harassed him at home, and you broke his phone. Now you've taken his job. You have to offer a real solution, don't you? Sun Yocho's face flushed as she asked, then how much money do you want? Seoj thought about it for a moment, and then he said, forget it, just give him some cash. But Sun Yucho and I both spoke up at the exact same time. She looked at me and said, I'm not giving you a cent. Then she added in a low voice, our company doesn't want people with bad morals. What's that supposed to mean? Chin Sheoj asked, clearly annoyed. How does my brother have bad morals? Sun Yucho grew anxious, her face turning even redder. He ate my food and only gave me the leftovers. I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing right in her face. I turned to Chin Sheoj and spoke up. Let's go, I said. Don't worry about my job. If I can't deliver food, I'll find something else to do. But before we left, I had one more question. I looked directly at Sun Yucho and her brother. I asked, is this settled? You won't be causing me any more trouble in the future, right? You're going to leave me alone now. Sun Yocho's face turned bright red at my words. But her brother shouted, don't worry, I'm convinced. I truly admire you, brother. If you need anything, just say it. Chin Sheoj ignored him completely and told me, let's get out of here. It was finally over, so I climbed into that beat-up old Santana. Chin Sheoj took the wheel and started driving. He looked at me, his curiosity finally getting the better of him. Did you really take down that entire group of guys by yourself? Chin Sheoj asked, waiting for an answer. I just looked at him and asked, is that really so hard to believe? Suddenly, he didn't seem to know what to say to that. Chin Sheoj is an incredible fighter, but even he was stunned. He asked if I wanted him to drop me off downtown and what my next move was. He asked what I'd do in the future and if I'd keep working as a delivery driver. I told him my account had been blocked and it wasn't worth the effort anymore. I knew I could find another job, something else to support myself. After all, I'm 23 now, I'm a grown man. Before I got out, he reminded me again to call him if I ever needed anything. Suddenly, I felt a wave of confusion I'd never experienced before. I used to wake up early and stay out late just to deliver food. Back then, I'd get home and only want to shower and collapse into bed. I used to hope for a day where I wasn't so busy, but now that day was here. I had no idea what to do next. My rented room was nothing more than a place to sleep. I was sick of that cramped space and the cold walls that only made me feel lonelier. I crouched by the curb at the Paris Spring Complex, watching the hurried faces of strangers pass by. A stray dog slowly approached and started circling around me. Then, it just sat down right next to me. Two strangers, two souls, enjoying the same silence and solitude. By 6:30 in the morning, the world was starting to wake up around us. That's when Lin Jifei appeared in my line of sight. She was carrying a lunchbox, walking toward her father's house. She was walking straight toward me. The stray dog at my side stood up the moment it saw Lin Jifei, its tail wagging rhythmically. Lin Jifei stepped closer to the curb. She didn't acknowledge me this time, simply opening the lunchbox she had brought in silence. Inside were leftovers from a meal. The stray dog seemed used to this routine. It lowered its head and began to eat greedily. I took the initiative to greet Lin Jifei and asked her a question. Do you prepare food for him every day? She looked at me and said, these are just leftovers from my coworker's lunch. It's a waste to throw them away, so I bring them for the dog. I misjudged you that night, she added, looking at me. Are you the delivery driver? I looked down at the uniform I was still wearing. I let out a sarcastic laugh. Too many complaints, I said. My account is blocked. I used to be a driver, but not anymore. Lin Jifei hesitated for a moment. She offered a sincere apology. I'm sorry. I wasn't in a good mood that day. I shouldn't have reported you without knowing the facts. It doesn't matter, I said with a fake ease. That's all in the past. Lin Jifei knelt down and stroked the stray dog's head. While we chatted, she asked, are you going to look for a new job? Yeah, I'm starting the job hunt tomorrow. Do you know this dog well? His name is Bubu. He lives on the south side of the island. He was a stray from a nearby village, and he was incredibly smart. Lin Jifei and I chatted for a while. Eventually, Bubu finished every last scrap of food in the lunchbox. She picked up the container and the plastic bag. She walked over to a nearby trash can to dispose of them. Bubu wagged his tail at us one last time before disappearing around the corner of the house. We walked back to the neighborhood together, marking the first real conversation I ever had with her. I learned she was a recent college graduate, and we started talking about the couple living next door. I hadn't seen them since they moved in a few days ago. Lin Jifei mentioned she didn't see the neighbors much either. They were likely local college students who only showed up occasionally. They'd arrive at night and leave by morning. It was clearly a cheap spot for their hookups. A hotel room costs over 100 yuan a night, but renting here is only 1,000 a month. It was a total bargain, and thanks to a stray named Bubu, Lin Jifei and I had finally made peace. We were actually talking now, and I finally had a chance to connect with her. The next morning, I woke up at 7:30. Out of habit, I reached for my delivery uniform. Then it hit me, my driver account was still blocked, and I had nowhere to go. I wasn't qualified to head out to the pickup zones today. No more deliveries for me. Then it hit me, my bike was still parked at the Katy International Hotel. When they detained me, I had to leave my ride behind. My electric scooter was still sitting right there on the city line. It was just waiting for me. I got dressed as fast as I could. I hailed a motorcycle taxi at the entrance of the neighborhood. I told him to head straight for the Katy International Hotel. I walked up to the security booth at the hotel entrance. I spotted the same fat security guard from before. He was on duty, and the moment I saw him, he locked eyes with me too. He raised his rubber baton and barked a question at me. "What are you doing back here, kid? Looking for more trouble?" "Cut the crap," I snapped back, completely fed up. "Where's my bike?" "What bike?" he asked with a smirk. The fat guard waved his baton in my face to threaten me. "There's no bike here for you, loser. Now get lost before I make you." "My electric scooter? I parked it right here yesterday. Who the hell stole it?" "I want to see the security footage." "The security footage?" The fat guard laughed, his voice dripping with contempt. "You really think you can just waltz in and check the tapes? This is an international hotel, not your damn living room." I had half a mind to slap the smug look right off his face. The fat guard kept gloating, mocking me and my beat-up ride. "If you go to the police with that piece of junk, they won't even open a case." Before he could finish, the fat guy suddenly snapped to attention and saluted. He looked incredibly professional all of a sudden. Who the hell just arrived? I turned around to see for myself. It was Senjuchus's white Range Rover. The luxury SUV crawled forward and came to a stop right beside me. He sat there, looking down at me, and asked, "What are you doing here?" "What do you want?" I snapped back, disgusted. "You think I want to be in this dump? I'm looking for my bike. It was right here yesterday, and now it's gone." The fat security guard hurried over and bowed. "President's son, don't mind him. He's making a scene over some broken-down scooter. He even has the nerve to demand access to our hotel's security cameras. He clearly thinks he's more important than he actually is. President's son, please, just go about your business. I'll make sure he finds his vehicle," the guard sneered. Senjuchu looked at the fat security guard and asked, "And how exactly will you do that? Where is it?" The fat guard replied with a malicious grin. "It was Xian, the guy on duty yesterday. He saw the city police haul that electric bike away on a truck." My blood began to boil. "You watched them take my ride and didn't say a word?" The city police had seized it violently, and these bastards just stood there. I only came to this hotel to deliver food to their own staff. Because of that delivery, I didn't just lose my job, I lost everything. While they were confiscating my bike, these guards couldn't even be bothered to lift a finger. "You couldn't have held onto it for me. Do you have even a shred of humanity?" The fat guard just smirked and rolled his eyes, his face dripping with gloating satisfaction. He practically sang his response. "And why exactly should we help you?" "Enough already," Senjuchu interrupted, looking visibly disgusted by the display. He looked at the guard and ordered, "Give him elevator access and bring him to my office." Without another word, he drove off toward the parking garage. "Are you serious?" the guard stammered, his smugness vanishing instantly. He stood there in a daze, muttering, "I must have heard him wrong. President's son actually told me to take you to his personal office." Senjuchu's office was located all the way up on the 29th floor. And to get there, I'd have to follow this idiot inside. I had to take an exclusive elevator to get there. The hotel staff offices are all located on the 20th floor. There's a specific elevator used only by internal personnel. Any outsider who wants to use this elevator needs a special permit. And right now, Senjuchu was ordering that fat guard to give me that permit. When I reached the 29th floor, I found the door to the office. The sign on the door read, "General Manager." I never imagined Senjuchu would be the general manager here. It was incredible that she reached such a high position at her age. But then my mind started to wander, wondering if she used her body to climb the ladder. She certainly had the looks for that kind of story. Then again, I haven't seen much of the world. Senjuchu's office was the most luxurious workspace I had ever stepped foot in. She was dressed in a sharp, professional blouse. She personally prepared a cup of tea and handed it to me. Then she asked, "How much does your electric bike cost?" I don't know why, but I suddenly felt the urge to mock her. She just kept asking and asking about the price. Money. Is money really the only thing that matters to her? Is money the only thing in your eyes? Can it really solve everything? I told her I'd been riding that electric bike for 3 years. It's been with me since the day I started delivering food, through every high and low. It endured the wind and the sun, only to be wrecked while delivering to your company. Don't you feel any shame at all? Is your conscience actually clear? Senjuchu picked up a cup of water. She took a sip of coffee and leaned back against her desk. She looked at me and said, "The way you talk makes it sound like a tragedy, as if you had some deep, spiritual connection with a machine. But no matter how deep that bond is, it won't help you now. I can't call city officials just to get your old bike back. Be more direct with me." She was cold, calculated, and completely unmoved. I told her, "I'm not here to talk about money. I have a problem with the way you treat people." She countered, "And do you have a problem with stealing other people's food?" I went silent, realizing I didn't have a comeback for that. Senjuchu lifted her wrist and checked her watch. She told me, "Stop wasting my time. I have a meeting starting soon, so give me a number right now." "Give me a number. How much money will it take to compensate you?" I don't know where I found the stubbornness to keep going. I just wanted to have it out with Senjuchu right then and there. I raised my voice and said, "I don't want your money, I just want my bike back." "Is 5,000 enough?" she asked. I said nothing. "Is 8,000 okay?" I still didn't say a word. "I'll give you 10,000, Senjuchu snapped, her voice rising. "Is that enough now?" I looked her in the eyes and asked, "Do you really think I came here just to extort you? Do you really think my character is that low?" "Fine, 20,000. If you don't want it, get out of my office and don't come back. Don't you dare show your face here again." I raised my finger and pointed it right at her, making her flinch back. I let out a bitter, arrogant laugh and said, "What a sad life you live. A life where the only thing that matters is the money in your eyes. How could someone like her ever understand the pain of losing a true companion like my bike? Sharing my feelings with you is a waste of my time. Hug your money tight and goodbye." I turned around to walk out, but she shouted, "Wait a minute." Senjuchu stood behind me and called out to stop me. She threatened, "Don't regret this. I'm giving you one last chance to take the deal. A 20,000 yuan compensation? I don't need it." I walked away after saying that, but Senjuchu called out from behind me. "Fine, consider this a debt I owe you. If you ever need help with something that doesn't violate my principles, I will definitely settle the score and pay you back." She was trying to act like her word was law. "Remember my number," she added as I stepped out of the Kitty International Hotel. Part of me wanted to turn back and slap myself for being so dramatic. That performance was a bit over the top, even for me. 20,000 yuan. Why didn't I just take it instead of showing off to this rich woman? The price of my pride was exactly 20,000, and now I had to live with it. I saved Senjuchu's phone number into my contacts anyway. I guess that was the only consolation prize I was getting. As I walked back, I started scrolling through my phone. I was casually checking my feed when I saw a post from Gauss. "Thank you to my mother for giving me life 24 years ago today. Mom, thank you for all your hard work." Seeing that post on my friend's wall actually brought a bit of warmth to my heart. Gauss was an old classmate of mine from high school. Back then, my relationship with Gauss Shu was incredibly close. There were very few boys in our liberal arts class. Seats were assigned by grades, so Gauss and I both sat in the front row. In every exam, it was always the same story. Either I was first or Gauss was. We took turns holding that top spot until we finally graduated high school. Gauss scored 590 points and got admitted to York University. I scored over 600 points, but I made a different choice. I chose to give it all up. My family simply couldn't afford the extra money to support my studies. Besides, my father's kidney disease required constant, expensive treatment. I needed to start working immediately to earn money and keep him alive. 4 years ago, Gauss came to Kunming to attend university. I came to Kunming just to find work. In the beginning, the two of us used to meet up all the time. But as our social circles drifted apart, the visits became less frequent. We weren't as close as we used to be, but that bond was still there. Seeing Gauss's post reminded me of that. I typed out a quick reply, "Happy birthday, brother." Gauss didn't waste a second and sent me a message on WeChat. "Momo, are you free tonight? Come over to my place." It was his birthday after all. I checked in with my father first. I asked him if he was feeling all right or had any issues. He told me he was fine, so I figured going was a good idea. Gauss studied business administration and was already finishing his doctorate. He told me he'd already turned down a few job offers. He said, "I want to find a hotel to work at. Since you're in hotel management, come over tonight if you have time. Let's see each other and talk. I'm on Dianchi Avenue. Bring your girlfriend so I can see how you're doing." Reading that made my heart sink. If I had gone to university 4 years ago, I'd be the one calmly discussing my career in hotel management too. Some people choose their lives, but others are chosen by fate. And a girlfriend? Where am I supposed to steal one of those? Suddenly, I thought of Senjuchu. Didn't she promise to meet up with me? Could I actually take Senjuchu to dinner tonight and introduce her? I could introduce her to Gauss. Didn't he want to work in hotel management? Senjuchu is the general manager of the Katy International Hotel. Even if she can't get him a job there, she's the perfect connection for him. I really wanted to provide Gauss with some solid resources for his future. With that thought in mind, I reached out to Senjuchu. When Senjuchu answered my call, she got straight to the point. "Are you regretting asking me for those 10,000 yuan? I laughed it off and asked her, "Is that all I am to you? Do you think I only call you when I need money?" She chuckled, but then her tone shifted. She turned serious and asked, "Then what are you doing? Didn't you promise me something today? You said you'd do anything," I reminded her. "As long as it didn't go against your principles. Didn't you say that?" "Yes, I said it," she replied. "What do you want me to do?" "Come with me to a friend's birthday party tonight, just for dinner. This doesn't go against your principles, does it? It's not too much to ask." Senjutsu lectured me through the phone. You want me to go to dinner? Do you think I have that kind of time? If you don't come, I won't force you. But at least I'll see who you really are, Senjutsu. Someone who only cares about money and breaks her promises. You decide if you're coming. There was a long silence on her end. She sounded annoyed as she snapped. Fine, fine. I'll go to this dinner. But after we eat, leave me alone. You have to promise me you won't embarrass me during the meal. Of course, I won't do anything inappropriate. I'll just be there as a friend. Senjutsu said brightly. Okay, I get it. See you tonight. I felt a secret surge of joy for convincing her. It had been 6 months since we last met, and today was the big day. On my way out, I stopped to buy a red envelope. I went into a shop and tucked 500 yuan inside. 500 yuan is no small amount for a guy like me. But I knew Gao Su's friends were likely all college students. Students these days are generous, and I didn't want to embarrass her with a cheap gift. I arrived at the restaurant entrance at exactly 6:15. Senjutsu's white Range Rover was already parked there. As soon as she saw me, she stepped out of the car and walked toward me. She was dressed in a sharp, professional business suit. I stood by the door, completely frozen. I couldn't help but scan her from head to toe until she glared at me. What are you staring at? She snapped. I didn't have time to change after work. As soon as I got the address you sent me, I drove straight here from the office. I smiled and told her, the suit doesn't matter. You look incredibly elegant. That compliment only earned me another sharp look of disapproval. I ignored the attitude and led her toward the back. We headed straight for the restaurant's private dining room. As I opened the door, I saw Gao Su sitting in the head seat. She was chatting with a guy sitting to her left. There were about a dozen people in the private room, and Gao Su stood up to greet me the moment she saw me. Momo, you're finally here. We were waiting for you. Come, sit here. She gestured for the guy next to her to move over. I walked over to the seat the guy had just vacated. I pulled out a cigarette and offered it to him as a thank you for the spot. He glanced at Senjutsu standing behind me and didn't take it. He pointed politely to the pack of premium soft zhonghua on the table. He told me he already had his own. Gao Su started introducing me to the rest of the group. Everyone, let me introduce Momo. We were best friends back in high school. He was a total genius back then, scored over 600 points on the Gaokao. I gave a bitter smile and told her, forget it, Gao Su. Don't bring up the past. Anyway, happy birthday. With those words, I handed her the red envelope. Gao Su's fingers tightened slightly as she felt the thickness of the envelope. She waved her hand and said, Momo, you're too kind. I didn't invite you here for a gift. It's been 6 months since we last saw each other. I just wanted us to catch up. Let's get the food served first, then we can talk. This is your sister-in-law, I said, introducing Senjutsu. And what's her name? Gao Su asked. Senjutsu didn't show even a hint of an objection to being called my sister-in-law. She just smiled and said, my name is Senjutsu. Gao Su looked her over and said bluntly, I'm Gao Su, a business major at Yunnan University. And I'm Momo's childhood friend. When Gao Su mentioned her school and her major, her voice grew noticeably louder. She was clearly showing off, radiating pride. Another guy chimed in. Let's get the food out first. Bring the food. The atmosphere in the room started to buzz again. Some of the guys lit up cigarettes. Others were deep in conversation. There were 2 couples there, holding hands and acting sweet. Gao Su leaned in toward me slightly. She looked at me and spoke softly. Momo, if you had just stayed in school, you wouldn't have to be a delivery driver. The word delivery hung in the air. The girl sitting next to Gao Su suddenly spoke up. Her tone was barely restrained as she asked, wait, do delivery platforms even have group meals? I've heard delivery drivers steal food all the time. Is that true? Before I could even open my mouth to speak, another guy cut me off and jumped into the conversation. Wong Wei, you're exaggerating. What's so bad about stealing a little food? Haven't you seen that video where they use the customer's soup as mouthwash in the elevator? Then they spit it back in. Disgusting. That whole industry is a mess right now. The platforms don't even regulate it. It's just a bunch of lowlives without real jobs doing it, who with a decent career would deliver food. My face burned with shame. I didn't dare look at this group of guys while they kept talking, and I certainly didn't want to look at Senjutsu sitting right next to me. While everyone was trashing my job, one girl suddenly turned to Senjutsu. Are you a delivery driver too? Senjutsu looked at her and smiled. Yes, Senmo and I are both drivers. We're colleagues. The girl's eyes filled with a strange kind of envy. Delivering food in the wind and sun every day must be brutal, right? And yet your skin is still so perfect. I'm so jealous. Senjutsu just smiled and didn't explain a thing, letting these small-town girls gossip. Gao Su looked uncomfortable and tried to comfort me in a low voice. Momo, don't take it to heart. They don't have a grudge against you. They're just chatting. I forced a bitter smile and told Gao Su, it's fine. I got it. I wasn't just trying to please Gao Su. I truly understood. After years of struggling in Kunming, I've met all kinds of people. College students are the most sheltered group of all. They haven't left the campus bubble yet, so they don't know how to read the room. They act like they're heaven's gift to the world, and after a few drinks, the bragging starts. The noise level in the room kept rising along with their egos. Gao Su offered me a cigarette. He asked casually, how is your father's illness doing? Is he able to get a kidney transplant yet? The moment he brought it up, I turned serious and downed my entire drink in one gulp. There isn't much hope, I said quietly. A transplant costs hundreds of thousands. My family can't afford that, and even with money, finding a donor match is nearly impossible. He's been on dialysis every week for years. It's left him as nothing but skin and bones. Gao Su sighed, thinking back to our time at school. You scored over 600 points on the Gaokao entrance exam, he reminded me. Why didn't you go to college? The whole school raised donation money for your tuition. I cut him off. I used that money for something else. I used it to pay for my father's doctors. Do I regret it? Maybe. If you had gone to school, you'd have better options than delivering food right now. I shook my head, lit the cigarette he gave me, and said sadly, if I had to choose 100 more times, I'd still use that money for my father. I'd pay for his doctors every single time. Why are you being so heartless? The girl sitting across from Gao Su asked. She looked at me with reproach and said, you should have used that money to study like us. Get into a prestigious university first, get your diploma, and earn a degree. Then you'd actually have options when looking for a job instead of being stuck delivering food. Shin Jun-chu, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. Never judge someone when you haven't walked in their shoes, she said firmly. What you're saying might be true in general, but it's not the right answer for every situation. The girl, Lu Ying, rolled her eyes in total disapproval. Gao Su cut her off and said, Lu Ying, stop talking. His father has been sick for years, and his mother has to stay home to care for him. The entire family depends on him alone right now. Lu Ying muttered with pure disdain, short-sighted. What else can I say? I felt the hand holding my glass start to tremble with suppressed rage. Suddenly, I felt a pair of soft, warm hands cover the back of mine. I looked up and saw Shin Jun-chu watching me with a kind, gentle gaze. Lu Ying ignored us and asked, Gao Su, did you send out those resumes I asked for? I already got an interview notification. Did you get anything yet? Gao Su pulled out his phone with a mysterious grin and showed her the screen. We're going to be accepted into this hotel's corporate group. A girl sitting across from us asked, what's with you two? You both look so happy. Congratulations, seriously. Let's all toast to celebrate. A high-level education is great. You actually get to choose your industry. Gao Su, he turned down so many good companies just for you. Lu Ying, cheer up. After dinner, it was time for the second part of the night. We were heading to KTV. Gao Su had already booked the room. It was about 2 kilometers away from the restaurant. As I walked out of the private dining room, the college classmates walked ahead while Shin Jun-chu and I trailed behind. I whispered to Shin Jun-chu, dinner is over now. You kept your promise to me, so don't worry about me anymore. Thank you. Shin Jun-chu asked in a low voice, are you going to the after-party? I shook my head, thinking we should find an excuse to slip away since we had nothing in common with them. Shin Jun-chu pouted and asked, where are you going? I'll give you a ride. By the time we reached the hotel entrance, Gao Su had already hailed 3 taxis, and 4 people were already piling into the first one. 2 more people were piling into the second taxi. That left 5 of us, Shin Jun-chu, me, Gao Su, Lu Ying, and a guy I didn't know. Lu Ying looked at Shin Jun-chu and said, let's all 5 of us just squeeze in. I'll talk to the driver. We'll make it work. See you there. Shin Jun-chu gave them a polite smile and said, thank you, but Senmo and I have something else to do. Let's catch up another day. Gao Su looked disappointed and said, come on, stay a while. It's rare for us to get together. Lu Ying secretly pinched Gao Su's arm to shut him up. She told him, it's fine, don't force them. It's peak time for delivery orders. Don't waste their time. I told Gao Su next time. We're all in Kunming anyway, so let's keep in touch. All right then, Gao Su said reluctantly. I'll hail a taxi for you. Be safe. No need for a taxi, Shin Jun-chu said. I haven't had a drop of alcohol. As she spoke, she pressed her remote, and the white Range Rover parked right next to us lit up. The headlights flashed twice as the doors unlocked. She gave Gao Su a polite wave and said, goodbye. Gao Su and Lu Ying stood there, their faces frozen and stiff. As Shin Jun-chu and I walked toward the luxury SUV, I heard Lu Ying's voice drop to a hateful hiss. Your childhood friend is such a joke, she spat. He clearly borrowed that car just to show off. I didn't hear the rest as I climbed into the passenger seat and leaned back against the leather. I leaned back and closed my eyes, unable to see my future as tears began to slide down my face. The pressure of life was suffocating me, leaving me to lick my wounds in the dark. I didn't want Shin Jun-chu to see me crying. I rolled down the window and let the wind dry the salt from my skin. The car eventually pulled up outside the Paris Spring Complex. I stepped out and said my goodbyes to Shin Jun-chu before heading toward the house. But Shin Jun-chu stopped me and asked, Senmo, do I owe you something? I turned back to look at her, shook my head, and said, no. You don't owe me a thing, I said, as she gave a faint smile and a quiet goodbye. When I got inside, Lenny Fei was on the phone in the living room, begging someone for forgiveness. He was pleading into the receiver, but he acknowledged me with his eyes as I walked in. I didn't say a word and went straight to the bathroom to take a shower. When I came back out, I saw him. He was sitting on the sofa, his eyes bloodshot and raw. I pulled 2 tissues from the box on the coffee table and handed them to him. I didn't know how to comfort him, maybe because I was the one who needed it most. Lenny Fei took the tissues from my hand. He gave a small nod to show his gratitude. This shitty life. I tried to drown it out with a few beers until I was drunk. I slept until noon the next day, but the weight in my chest still hadn't moved. The phone woke me up, but I didn't even look at who was calling. Out of professional habit, I answered and said, hello, doctor. Shin Jun-chu's voice came through the receiver, asking if I was still sleeping and calling me lazy. I asked her groggily, what does my laziness have to do with you? She asked for a favor and told me to come to her company so we could talk in person. She said she wouldn't force me, but after hesitating for a few seconds, I agreed. I told her I'd be there in half an hour and added, "Control your guard dogs so they don't bite me." Shin Junshu laughed and joked that it sounded like I'd already been bitten. By 10:30, I found her in her office, sitting at her desk and processing documents. I walked up, leaned my hands on her desk, and got straight to the point. "What's so important that only I can solve it?" I asked. She let go of the mouse, leaned back with her arms crossed, and looked me in the eye. She explained that the HR department was interviewing candidates today and she wanted my help. She wanted me to act as the head of the interview panel to see if these people were actually useful. I stared at her in disbelief and asked, "Are you joking? You're asking me to be your interviewer?" I repeated, but she just nodded. Shin Junshu remained calm and told me she was dead serious. She said the candidates had already arrived and her assistant, Xiaoru, would support me. She insisted it wasn't that hard to be an interviewer. I just had to look them over, and if I had a good feeling about them, I'd let them through. I could even fire them on the spot if my gut told me they weren't right. I looked at her and asked, "What are you really up to?" I knew there had to be a hidden motive behind asking me to help with interviews. The corner of Shin Junshu's mouth curled into a meaningful smirk. She stood up and told me to go, saying Xiaoru would take me there. She promised I'd understand why she called me here once I reached the HR office. My curiosity was piqued. I followed Xiaoru straight to the interview room. 4 sets of application materials were already laid out on the table. Xiaoru explained that only these 4 candidates had passed the preliminary screening. However, the company only had room to hire 2 of them. She told me to review the files while she went to call the candidates in one by one. I opened the first resume, a 26-year-old with 2 years of experience. He specialized in hotel management systems. The second resume belonged to a girl from the School of Business Administration. Her background was average, but her personal statement was written with striking humility. Then, I flipped open the third resume. My heart stopped. It was Galwan. A realization hit me like a physical blow, and I scrambled to open the fourth file. Sure enough, Lu Qian's photo was staring right back at me. Last night at the dinner table, they were so excited, bragging about getting an interview invite. It turns out they meant the Katy International Hotel, and Shin Junshu wanted me to be the interviewer. I took a moment to reflect, and I think I finally understood Shin Junshu's intentions. A moment later, the assistant, Xiaoru, returned to the office. She told me everything was organized and ready to go. She asked if she should bring them in one by one, but I looked at her and shook my head. I told her, bring all 4 of them in together. Xiaoru looked at me, clearly surprised by the request. A hint of distrust flashed in her eyes for a split second. It was as if she was doubting whether I actually knew how to conduct a proper interview. I didn't blink and insisted, yes, all 4 at once. Xiaoru didn't hesitate any longer. She opened the door and stepped out. When she returned, she was leading the 4 candidates into the room. They lined up right in front of me. I sat there, staring directly at the 4 of them. Xiaoru cleared her throat to make the introductions. "This is Director Chun from our personnel department," she announced. "Which 2 of you get to stay today depends entirely on Director Chen's decision." After she finished introducing me, the room went silent. She walked back to the desk and sat to my left, ready to take notes on the session. She opened her laptop, ready to record every word of the session. The room was silent, and I could see Gauss was struggling to process what he was seeing. He tried to avoid saying my name out loud, looking at me with pure shock. I wasn't mistaken, was I? I let a small, cold smile play on my lips. I felt it then. The game was already over. I looked at them and said, "Sit down. I've reviewed your resumes and your progress through the previous rounds. Getting this far proves you're the best of the bunch, even if you don't land the job today." Lu Qian smirked with pride, acting as if she had already won. Her arrogant attitude immediately drew a look of pure disgust from the other male candidate. Gaosu quickly pulled Lu Qian back, whispering for her to shut up before apologizing to the man. However, the other girl in the group didn't react at all. She stayed stone-faced, as if she hadn't heard a word Lu Qian said. I picked up my glass, took a slow sip of water, and continued. The final interview question is actually very simple. Your monthly salary is 5,000, and you have 3 housing options, a slum room for 500 or a shared apartment for 1,000. The third option is to rent your own private apartment in a nice residential complex. The monthly rent for that one is 2,500. I leaned forward and asked, which one would you choose? Lu Qian jumped in first, saying, I'd take the 2,500 apartment. I need a good environment and my own space. Gaosu scratched his head and said he'd choose the shared apartment in a residential complex. I shifted my gaze toward the third girl. Her name was easy to remember. By Pei. It was the first time I heard her voice, soft and delicate as she chose the shared apartment. She argued that your living environment is far too important to ignore. She believed roommates should share similar income levels and values. That way, living together helps expand your social circle in the city. Finally, the last man spoke up firmly and chose the slum room. He argued that a 5,000 monthly salary isn't much to work with. He'd rather spend his money on networking and social interactions than on a fancy roof. Once all 4 finished, I turned to Xiaoru and told her the interview was over. She looked at me and asked which 2 would be staying on. I told them the results would be announced tomorrow morning via phone call. Xiaoru stood up and thanked the 4 candidates on my behalf. She explained that their future at the company depended entirely on my final decision. I'll walk you out, please follow me, Xiaoru said, leading the way toward the exit. The man and Bai Pei followed her out immediately. But Lu Qian didn't move toward the door with the others. She rushed to my desk and shouted, Momo, aren't you a delivery guy? What are you doing here? She gushed about how cool the interview was and asked if she and Gaosu should start preparing. She was already talking about us starting work next week. A faint smile touched the corner of my mouth, and I didn't even know what to say. Gaosu pulled on Lu Qian's arm and told her it was time to go. He asked if I had time tonight, saying I left too early yesterday. I told Gaosu to find me after work so we could grab a drink and catch up properly. All right, I'll contact you when I'm off, he replied. Just as they reached the door, Lu Qian grabbed Gaosu's arm. She looked at him with infinite confidence and whispered about my new position. She couldn't believe I was the HR director of the D Hotel and insisted they stay in touch. The four of them finally walked out. The interview office was finally quiet. I walked back to find Senjuchu staring at her computer screen. As I got closer, I could actually hear the sound of my own voice coming from the speakers. She smiled and told me I did a great job, especially with that original final question. I frowned and asked her if she had been watching the whole time. Senjuchu turned the screen toward me and confirmed she saw everything. She explained that she watched the live feed earlier and was now re-watching the recording. It turns out this office was equipped with a hidden camera. I stood there, momentarily speechless. I wondered if she didn't trust me, but she took the initiative to explain herself first. Don't get the wrong idea about our interview room, she said. There are always cameras. She explained that sometimes incidents happen or people try to retake the tests. The HR staff has to review the footage multiple times before making a final call. I nodded, and Senjuchu asked with a smile, so, which two should we keep? Bai Pei and Gaosu, I replied without hesitation. She asked why I wasn't choosing Lu Qian. Aren't you afraid your best friend Gaosu will be upset with you? She teased. I instinctively pulled out a cigarette and put it in my mouth. Just as I was about to light it, I realized where I was. I was in someone else's office, so I started to put the lighter away. Senjuchu told me it didn't matter and that she didn't mind people smoking around her. I thanked her, lit the cigarette, and told her I understood why she asked me here today. I appreciated her hard work, and since she was being good to me, I couldn't be irresponsible. Lu Qian is conceited and lacks manners. She isn't worth the effort to train. Bai Pei is different. Her resume is solid, and she carries herself with humility. She has a great image and a natural affinity for people. As for Gaosu, he lacks experience, but his values and outlook on life are straight as an arrow. Personal relationships aside, I'd suggest keeping him for the company's sake. I won't use your kindness toward me to make decisions that hurt your business. That's why I didn't announce the winners. The final decision is yours. Going from a delivery boy yesterday to the HR director's office today, it's a massive shift, and I've seen how quickly people's attitudes change. One title swap, and suddenly they treat you like a completely different person. This society is cold and realistic, and the people living in it are total hypocrites. I appreciate what you're doing, letting me reclaim my dignity in front of my friends. But you've also backed me into a corner. Gaosu and Lu Qian think I'm the one who decides their fate, and it's incredibly awkward. Senjuchu looked at me, her expression unreadable. She spoke with total indifference, as if the answer didn't matter to her. If it's that hard for you, just keep Gaosu and Lu Qian. I manage over 100 people at the Kaidi Hotel. One more Lu Qian won't hurt me. I looked at her, speechless, then turned my back and walked toward the door. Have your fun, I said. I'm leaving. Stop messing with me. I'm not playing games. Wait, Senjuchu called out from behind me. If you think I'm making a mistake, you're wrong. If Gaosu is really your best friend, you should understand why you won't hire Lu Qian. If he breaks up with you over this, then he isn't a friend worth keeping. He has to know what kind of person Lu Qian really is. Do you honestly think he'll be happy with a hypocrite like her in the long run? I know outsiders have no right to comment on someone else's relationship, but when it's a clear matter of character, shouldn't you speak up for your friend? I stood there listening to Senjuchu's words, but I didn't want to say anything else. I just opened the office door and walked out. Senjuchu's voice trailed after me. Since you started this, see it through to the end. I don't want the help you promised me to turn into a complete disaster. Just like that dinner last night that I hated, I stayed until the end for you. Tomorrow, you will announce the interview results yourself. Senjuchu's supposed kindness had just tossed a hot potato right into my lap. I have no idea how to face Gaosu and Lu Qian now. I couldn't care less about Lu Qian's feelings, but I don't want Gaosu to be humiliated. Tonight's dinner is going to be incredibly awkward, but I can't avoid it. At 4:30, Gaosu called to ask when I was finishing work. I told him everything was set, and he sounded thrilled, asking where we should meet. He wanted to grab some drinks, so I told him to meet me at Paris Spring. It's just a normal little restaurant outside the residential complex. Gaosu said he'd be there immediately and hung up. I have no idea what's going to happen tonight. Will a 10-year friendship collapse forever, or will it come out stronger? At 5:30, Gaosu and Lu Qian showed up at the restaurant. Suddenly, my nerves started shooting through the roof. I wanted to save this friendship, but I couldn't bring myself to betray my principles. Gaosu's kindness toward me was exactly what had landed me in this mess. How long have you been waiting? Gaosu pulled out a chair and gestured for Lu Qian to sit first. She took her seat with a smug look on her face. Then he pulled out another chair for himself and sat right next to her. He asked politely, "Do you live nearby?" I handed him a cigarette and pointed to the complex next door. I live in Paris Spring. It's close. Lu Qian looked outside and smiled. The greenery there is so nice. The rent must be a fortune. Yesterday you were still lying to us, saying you were a delivery guy. You're too much. Were you afraid Gaosu would ask you for a favor? Stop talking nonsense, Gaosu said, cutting her off. Momo isn't that kind of person, he added, while I just forced a smile. I handed him the menu and said, order whatever you want. It's on me today. Gaosu took it and grinned. Then I won't be polite. After all, you're a director now. The director of HR at the Tahiri International Hotel. I'm really happy for you, he said as the first few dishes arrived. But the conversation never drifted away from the hotel for a second. They grilled me on the work environment, the salaries, and the corporate structure. There were so many questions I didn't even know how to answer. I could only offer awkward smiles and try to change the subject. They realized I was dodging their questions. The dinner was suffocating, filled with an awkward, heavy tension. Lu Qian was the first one to snap. She gripped her chopsticks and said, Gaosu, it seems Momo doesn't want you working at Tahiri. I sighed and replied, whether you guys work there isn't up to me. Nonsense, Lu Qian snapped back. Today, you're the one who is supposed to be interviewing us. She continued, Xiao Lu is the assistant to the general manager at Tahiri. He said you're the one who decides if we stay or go. How can you say it's not up to you? I felt like I had walked straight into a trap with no way out. Gaosu looked at me with total sincerity. Momo, this job is incredibly important to Lu Qian and me. I know there are plenty of five-star hotels in Kunming, but after comparing them all, we realized Tahiri is the best place for our careers. I looked at him, confused. But why? Why are you so insistent on Tahiri specifically? Gaosu lowered his voice mysteriously. You work there, so you must have heard about Sun Dezhong. The CEO of the Tahiri Group died in a plane crash in Hawaii. He leaned in closer as he finished the thought. The rescue attempts failed. He's gone. He's just gone, and word on the street is that his daughter has taken over. She's currently in charge of the Tahiri Hotel right here in this city. The company is at a turning point and desperately needs to inject fresh blood. The reason we chose Tahiri is because we saw this opening. Chaos creates heroes, and I want to take Lu Qian and test our luck there. I understood Gaosu's logic. It really was a massive opportunity to prove himself. But honestly, I didn't care about his career goals. I just didn't want to hire someone as heartless as Lu Qian. Besides, a stable and comfortable work environment is actually a good thing. Why would anyone go looking for a place filled with backstabbing and schemes? Gaosu looked at me with a heavy, serious expression. Momo, he said, his voice pleading. If it's at all possible, please, make sure we get to stay here at Tahiri. I didn't give him a straight answer right then and there. I just told him to go home and wait for a call. But my mind flashed back to that screen in the abandoned warehouse. I remembered Shun Yuchu telling Shun Youhao, I promised to take care of you. If my instincts were right, that illegitimate daughter Gaosu mentioned was none other than her. It was highly likely that the daughter was Shun Yuchu. Back at the restaurant, I started packing up the leftovers. Lu Qian watched me, her eyes filled with confusion. She couldn't fathom why a high-level director would bother with scraps. When I got home, Lin Yifei's bedroom door was wide open. I walked past and saw her back turned to me, sitting at her desk. She was hunched over her computer in a tank top, buried in work. I stepped out onto the balcony and dialed Shin Yochu's number. What is it this late? She asked. Still about the recruitment? I told her Gaosu and Lu Qian had treated me to dinner tonight. You can probably guess what they said, I told her calmly. I think this little joke should end here. It's getting to be a bit much. You know exactly who belongs in that office and who doesn't. Gaosu and the others are the right fit. At least, that's what I believe. I'm sorry to keep bothering you with this, but we need to clear this up. Shin Yochu's voice sharpened, sounding genuinely annoyed. Shinemo, let me ask you something. What about what you promised me? You asked me to go to dinner, and I skipped a massive meeting for you. I hate those social dinners, but I stayed by your side until the very end. I was compared to a delivery boy, and I only took it because of my word to you. Shin Yuchu spoke with a sharp, uncompromising attitude. You can choose to stop this damage and hire Gaosu and Lu Qian right now. I have given you the authority to make that happen. Can you stop being so stubborn? The company is yours. Are you joking with me? She sounded furious, or maybe she was just trying to provoke me. This is revenge, she told me. Revenge for doing something so disgusting to my food. Tomorrow morning, come to my office and make the call yourself. Tell them to register with HR, and then you'll have fulfilled your promise to me. She hung up, leaving me with the feeling that I'd boarded a pirate ship I couldn't escape. I stepped off the balcony just as Lin Yifei was heading to the bathroom. I waved and noted that she seemed to be buried in work lately. Work has been a nightmare, Lin Yifei said gloomily. The company has a new project, and I've been grinding out plans nonstop. Are you using the bathroom? Because if not, I'm taking a shower. I headed back to my room and closed the door. I lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling and weighing my options. It was a lose-lose situation. No matter what I chose, it felt wrong. The next day brought a torrential downpour as I stood in Shin Yochu's office. I hated the way she was looking at me, with that mocking, triumphant glint in her eyes. She sat across from me at the coffee table, gesturing toward the landline phone. She was holding a cup of coffee, looking completely at ease. Meanwhile, I just stared at the phone with total indecision. Make the call, Shin Yuchu said with a fake, calm smile. She knew that even if I told Gaosu and Lu Qian I wasn't the HR director, they wouldn't believe me. I glared at her and asked through gritted teeth, "You never actually wanted to help me, did you? You didn't want to build my confidence, you just wanted to trap me." Shin Yochu's mouth hung open for a second. A flicker of disappointment flashed in her eyes. Then she scoffed with pure disdain and said, "Think whatever you want." She got up from the sofa and walked back to her desk without another word. The damage was done. If I tried to explain the truth to Gao Su now, I'd just look like a liar. Since I was already stuck, what was the point in hesitating? I grabbed the landline off the table. I dialed the extension for Xiao Ru immediately. When she picked up, I forced the words out of my mouth. "Xiao Ru, inform Gao Su he's hired. Tell him to come in Monday to register." Xiao Ru's voice came through the receiver. "And who is the second one?" The second one. My hand started trembling as I held the phone. Across the room, Shin Yochu's gaze hadn't left me for a single second. "Hello?" Xiao Ru asked again from the other end of the line. Xiao Ru's voice pressed me. "Director Chun, who else are you hiring?" The second one. Lu Qian's name was on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't say it. Xiao Ru's voice rang out again from the other end of the line. She reminded me, "Director Chun, go ahead, I'm listening." By Pei. The moment those 3 words left my mouth, I felt a wave of relief, followed by a hollow sense of emptiness. "Got it. I'll call Gao Su and By Pei now and tell them to register on Monday." I was the one who ended the call. I slammed the receiver down first. I slumped back against the sofa. I stared at the ceiling and heard Shin Yochu's footsteps as she walked back. She sat across from me and whispered, "Thank you. This was actually a test for you." I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "A test? What exactly are you testing? Stop making up excuses to comfort me. I'm not a 3-year-old child. You only did this to get revenge for me mocking you. If I could, I'd go back a few days. I never should have lied and said I ate your food. I didn't actually do it." Shin Yuchu said indifferently, "It doesn't matter. There are no what-ifs in this world. Actually, I'm glad you told that lie. It gave us more chances to interact. In any case, I apologize. I shouldn't have put you on the spot like that." It was such a difficult question, but before Shin Yuchu could even finish, my phone started buzzing in my pocket. I checked the screen. It was a call from Gao Su. I took a breath and answered it. Gao Su's voice came through, heavy and quiet. "Can you tell me why?" With Shin Yuchu sitting right across from me, I couldn't explain a thing. I could only manage a few words. "I'll call you back later." "Fine, I'm waiting," he said, and the line went dead. My mood sank even further as Shin Yuchu spoke up again. "First, I apologize, and then I'll explain why I had to do this. Whether you forgive me or not, I'm grateful for everything you did today." I watched her in silence. Her face showed guilt, but also a strange sense of helplessness. She continued, "I know I've caused you a massive problem, but still, the company is going through a major restructuring right now. We are adjusting the staff across several different departments. I need people around me who are actually willing to look out for me. I'm trying to build my own loyal team from the ground up. When I asked you to help with the interviews yesterday, I had a reason. I wanted you to gain some prestige and respect in front of your friends. Even if you had hired Gao Su and Lu Qian, it wouldn't have mattered to the firm. At most, they would have quit after a single month." Shin Yuchu paused, watching my expression cautiously before continuing. "Yesterday, while you were conducting the interviews, I was watching the whole process, and I was surprised you didn't hire Lu Qian on the spot. In my office, you told me she wasn't the right fit, and I actually agree with you. When I saw your resolve, I had an idea. I wanted to see what your final choice would be. I wasn't disappointed. You stuck to the right decision even when it was hard. Even if it meant breaking ties with your friends. I want to know, did you do it for me?" A disdainful smirk pulled at the corner of my mouth. "Don't overthink it. I have my own principles, and I just didn't want a guilty conscience." "Perfect," Shin Yuchu said brightly. "I need someone like you. So let's talk." "Talk about what?" I asked, pulling a cigarette from the pack. I placed it between my lips and waited for her to speak.